Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. And I got to tell you, today's an exciting day because last night I was thinking to myself, if we're going to continue the conversation around the Olympics and transition it off to the Flyers, I need to have a very intelligent human being available on the show because it can't just be me. All right, I may bring the good looks and the boyish charm. None of that is true. But I decided I need to have somebody on here who can make sense of what we saw, not just in Milan, but what we could see going forward with your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. And I figured it would also be a good idea, because I haven't talked to this guy on the show in a while, to maybe do a little check-in on Porter Martone, on Gavin McKenna. They obviously had a big week last week. We're going to talk about that as well, and a bunch of other hilarity. After the guest, we will also get to some stuff that happened. Nick Sirianni dropped some very weird comments about A.J. Brown. Bryce Harper's being Bryce Harper, and he kind of refuted a radio personality's report about a right-handed bat that the Phillies may or may not have gone after. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show, but first, we start today still basking in the glow of a gold medal performance from both the men's team and the women's team. And who do I bring on now? None other than the great Adam Kimelman of NHL.com. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. Round of applause. Adam Kimelman is here. How you doing, fella?
I'm good. I'm still enjoying some of the hockey Olympic stuff. You know, I think they had the gold medal game for the women on right after the closing ceremony, so I got to watch that again the other night, and it was outstanding hockey, right? Like, yeah. I think a few people, like, we all sort of assumed it would be really good because of the level of talent, the intensity, and all that stuff, but then you watch just the quarterfinals, semifinals, the finals for the men and the women. On the men's side, I think the last 5 games or whatever it was went to overtime.
Yep.
I mean, you can't get much more dramatic than that. The women's game was phenomenal, the gold medal game. I think Megan Keller's goal, they're calling it the Star Spangled Dangle. I mean...
That's a pretty damn good name for it.
You know, I can't take credit for that. I saw it somewhere online. But
okay.
Both men and women, both just awesome, awesome games.
They were fantastic. I mean, I'm a big believer in the Olympics, even though it's an imperfect science. And Adam, like, I don't know, we could dive into this for a second if you want. Like, I still think that ultimately not having the Russians there, I don't delve into geopolitics. All right, it's just not my thing. I understand conceptually why Russia's not there. I do feel like it was such a cool missed opportunity to have seen like Ovechkin in what would have almost certainly been his last Olympics, and like the juicy possibility of a Crosby-led Canada versus an Ovechkin-led Russia. Did you feel like we missed out at all there? We will get back to how good the hockey was, but like, did you feel like we missed out a little bit by not having Russia in the Olympics?
I mean, from a strictly hockey standpoint, taking all the other stuff out of the equation, for sure. If you're calling it best on best, you need to include all the best players in the world, and that does include the sizable contingent of Russia-born NHL players. I mean, who wouldn't have loved to see Ovechkin and Panarin and Michkov and Demidov and whoever, Bobrovsky, whoever else they would have had on that Russian team? I'm just kind of the first names that popped into my head. Yeah, it would have been awesome, but it wasn't. So despite that, it was still amazing hockey. It's like, yes, would it have been great to have them there from a purely hockey standpoint? Yes. But did we miss anything? Was the tournament any sort of less than because they weren't there? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, the way that the semis played out, the quarterfinals, we had some pretty interesting things happening, right? Quinn Hughes plays hero in overtime for the U.S. Obviously, the semifinal wasn't nearly as close. Now, I guess the U.S. and Canada felt like they were always going to be on a collision course, right? Like, I mean, there was the outside chance, and like Finland was up 2-0 on Canada. Like, it very easily could have gone the other way. And for as upset as the Canadians were to only walk away with the silver, can you imagine what would have happened if they hadn't even gotten to the gold medal game? I mean, to me, it felt like Finland, one, couldn't generate opportunities as that game advanced, and second, like, it almost felt like they got overly conservative, and they were trying to hold on to that lead, and then they kind of blew it. Did you view that any differently?
Yeah, they as soon as you stop moving forward and you go into that, prevent defense, like, I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. It felt like they parked the bus and we're just sort of waiting to counterattack but they never got that counterattack going in any sort of meaningful way. They never really put any pressure on Canada after they got out to the lead. And, it's like the old saying, when you play a prevent defense, the only thing it does is prevent you from winning. And the game went the way it went. So, the opportunity was there for them to pull I don't know if you call it a massive upset, but the opportunity was there for them to move forward. So, but getting back to your original point, it always did feel like Canada versus US was the way that, any sort of, and I guess we're biased because we're in North America, but that's kind of how we saw it all going all along. That it would be sort of not quite a rematch of the Four Nations final, but a lot of the same guys playing a lot of the high pressure, high intensity hockey, just without the 3 fights in the first 8 seconds of the game.
It would have been pretty cool to see the gloves drop, but I guess
the problem with that is in international hockey, you fight, it's an automatic ejection. So okay, so now you're playing. If you're the U.S., you're playing out without the Tkachuks and JT Miller, and if you're Canada, you're playing without Hagel and Bennett, and I forget who the third player was, but you don't want to do that. So
far from ideal.
Right.
Now, one of the big things I think people were worried about going into the Olympics, and obviously it's a concern for the NHL. It's not the rink, right? The rink ended up holding up. We didn't see any massive holes or divots in the ice that led to prolonged periods of non-activity. But the thing that I think the league obviously was most concerned with was injuries and the likelihood of a player of any kind of stardom whatsoever getting hurt, potentially missing time when they got back. Now, it remains to be seen how many of these guys might end up missing time. Crosby apparently for the final was close. They felt like they were doing everything they could to get him on the ice. I'm a little bit skeptical that he's going to be back in the lineup right away for Pittsburgh. I could be wrong. Do you think that the league as a whole takes a look at how this tournament went and they look at 4 years from now and they kind of do that weighing of the pros and cons? I think it's good for the game. It's good for the players as a whole. It's good for the global stage to show just how great NHL players are. But do you feel like, given a few of the injury scares that happened in this tournament, the NHL maybe feels a little bit hesitant 4 years from now to run this back?
Well, part of the deal for going to Italy was signing on to go to France in 2030. So that's sort of a done deal. So we are going.
All right, I missed that. So that's good. All right, cool. All right, disregard.
And then after that, in 2034, if my math is right, we're in Salt Lake City. So now you're back in North America. So I think, again, there's more pros than cons, I think is what it comes down to. Because, look, the knee injury, or, I'm assuming the lower body injury that Sidney Crosby sustained against Czechia in the quarterfinals, he could have very easily gotten that against the Montreal Canadiens on a Tuesday night, right?
Okay.
It wasn't like it was some sort of headhunting, malicious hit. It was a bad play. It just a miss, just one guy's leg went the wrong way at the wrong time. Same with Kevin Fiala. You've seen that play where two guys go into the boards and one guy gets up, sort of loses his balance and falls the wrong way, and nothing happens. Both guys eventually get up and skate away. Unfortunately, Kevin Fiala did not get up and skate away. He's now out for the season.
Here you go. I mean, this just came out. Crosby's out, injured reserve. He's out for at least 4 weeks. Penguins PR actually put out a clarifying tweet. We'll go back to it in a second here. But yeah, Crosby now placed on IR. And then here was the one from Penguins PR. Crosby is expected to miss a minimum of 4 weeks. So that certainly isn't the news that Pittsburgh wanted, right?
No, and certainly not where they are in the standings, where they're, second place in the Metropolitan Division, but only a point ahead of the third place Islanders. So, they're in a fight for a playoff spot, and Columbus and Washington are only 5 points back. So with a lot of time left in the season to make up some games. So now you're losing your best player, even though your best player is 38 years old, he's still their best player by a pretty significant margin. So now to have him out of the lineup through the end of March, it's a giant blow. But all of that being said, you can't wrap these guys in bubble wrap, right?
Sure.
He could have, like I said, gotten hurt on a Tuesday night in San Jose.
Yep.
Same injury, same 4-week minimum absence, right? So whether it happened in Italy or whether it happened in St. Louis, that's just the way the game goes. It's not, it's a full contact sport. And that's just those injuries happen. It's unfortunate it happened to Crosby, certainly. It's unfortunate when it happens to any player. But, that's just unfortunately how the game goes sometimes.
I want to get into the Flyers of it all in a little bit here, but before we do, a couple of guys that obviously I think really did a lot to maybe change the perception around them or to certainly make themselves all-time icons. Jack Hughes, who I think people already knew was a very good player, right? And was the cornerstone of the Devils franchise, and like as he goes, so goes the team. There had been some thoughts, I think, in the past that maybe he wasn't the most physical, most tough player in the lineup night in and night out. When you have an image like they ultimately land on at the end of the Olympics, where he's got the bloodied mouth, he's draped in the flag. I mean, could you have asked for a better image if you're a hockey player than that?
No, it's exactly, it says everything about the sport, that you're willing to sacrifice a couple of teeth for a gold medal or a championship of any kind, like that's the hockey player ethos. And that's why, look, go back a year ago to the Four Nations. People said Jack Hughes was not built for high-level, high-intensity international hockey. He was pushed off the puck. He's still not strong enough. He's this or he's that. And I think that narrative certainly has been put to bed by the way he played in the Olympics and, how he scored that gold medal winning goal. It showed that, he is built for big boy hockey, if that's what you want to call it. And he came up huge in the hugest moment. And he scored the goal that, the way 46 years to the day, we still talk about Mike Eruzioni's goal. 50 years from now, we're still going to be talking about when Jack Hughes scored the gold medal winning goal in the 2026 Olympics.
It's a wild play, iconic play. And I don't know if you saw this or not or heard this, but apparently he and his brother Quinn Hughes, they were talking the night before. They couldn't sleep. And apparently Jack Hughes kept saying, I keep thinking about scoring the game-winning goal in overtime. And it came to fruition. It's pretty wild stuff.
Well, I'm sure
Good for him.
I'm sure he did it in his driveway a zillion times growing up playing hockey with his brothers. Like, we all had that moment growing up. Not many of us get to actually have that dream come to fruition. He's the rare young man who gets to have that and gets to live with that for the rest of his life now.
The other guy who I think did a lot, the phrase I used on Monday's show is exercised his demons, was Connor Hellebuck. A guy who there were also questions about whether or not he could step up in a big game, if he could deliver when all the chips are down, when you need a guy to go out and steal you a win. Can he do it? Can he keep you in the game, but can he make a save or two that fundamentally saves the game and maybe gets you the gold medal? This one lives in the all-time, I think, annals of hockey in the U.S. It has to. It's an incredible save.
Oh, 100%. Like, again, the same way we're going to talk about the Jack Hughes goal, you're going to talk about that remarkable one-handed stretch reach back save on Devon Taves there. It's, a gold medal winning save from a guy who has a reputation for not coming up big in the biggest spots. He allowed the overtime goal in the championship game of the Four Nations face-off. He couldn't get his team out of the first round of the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row before they won one series last season, and then they went out in the second round. And that Jets team, for the last few years, obviously this season's been a struggle for them, but that Jets team's had legitimate Stanley Cup hopes, and you have the two-time Vezina winning goalie in your net, 2 in a row in 3 and 4 years, and he just couldn't get the job done when it really mattered. Now, the reasons behind that are varied. Some of it might be he just played too many games. He was starting 58, 59, 60 games in a season, then going into the playoffs. So maybe there was a little bit of wear and tear there. But whatever the reason, he came up the biggest in the biggest game of his life. Made that save and made a bunch more that were really, really important, got them to overtime, and now he's got a gold medal.
Do you think if we ask these guys, no truth serum involved, but just ask them at their core, in their soul, gold medal or Stanley Cup, which way do you think a lot of these guys would lean?
That's a really good question. My guess is Stanley Cup, because you go through, it's not just the 82 regular season games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go from captain's practice, say the last week of August, through the end of June if you play the Stanley Cup final. That's a long time to be around the same group of guys at the rink, on the plane, practice days, gym days, meetings, video, dinners on the road, hotels. You spend more time, these guys spend more time around each other than they do their spouses, their children, their significant others. Yep. There's a legitimate brotherhood there that professional sports loans itself to that doesn't exist in other places of business, right? So you're around these guys, you live with these guys basically for 10 months out of the year. Yeah. And to win and reach that ultimate goal with those guys, I mean, the Olympics is great. Like, these guys will dine on that. Listen, the 1980 Olympic team, I don't know how many of those guys played together beyond Lake Placid, right? I'm sure there was some crossover, be it college, be it pro, whatever. But those guys had that moment for, a few weeks in Lake Placid and whatever time they built up before that. These guys who went to Italy, they were together for 3.5 weeks. And they'll walk together forever, to paraphrase the great Fred Shiro. Mm-hmm. But to me, again, having won neither and never having the chance to win either, I'm just speculating, but I would say Stanley Cup would probably be the thing for them. Because also Olympics isn't going to be for everybody, right? Not everyone's going to have that chance to play in the Olympics. Only the elite of the elite of the elite get that.
That's kind of why I wonder. See, and that's why I kind of wonder if the Olympics is actually the pinnacle for some of these guys. I actually, and maybe the other way to kind of drill down on it is like this. If you play for Canada, right, it is the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite. I mean, guys that would have been like a 5th or 7th alternate, even a 10th alternate, are probably like top line guys on a lot of the countries that end up qualifying for the Olympics, right? So I wonder if there's something to be said for not only representing your country, but doing so in a country that's so difficult to make the team versus a squad where, like, you are by far the best player on your respective team. And if they somehow go on a Cinderella run and win it, does that throw off the balance a little bit? I don't know. I really don't know. But it is an interesting, I think, kind of thought exercise. Like, if you're the best guy or one of the best people on your team in the NHL and you happen to make your national team, I don't know, maybe it doesn't feel quite as fulfilling to win the Olympics as it would the Stanley Cup. Maybe it comes down to, like, which team are you more important on? I don't know.
I think
it's interesting.
I think with the Olympics, it's sort of like an all-star game on steroids, right? Because you're taking the best players. Like, Travis Konecny and Mark Scheifele, top-line guys on their team, could not crack Team Canada, right?
Yep.
Jason Robertson, Cole Caulfield, top-line guys on their teams, could not make Team USA. Does that make them somehow lesser players because they couldn't make this team? No. They were not chosen for the grandest all-star game, all-star tournament they could possibly play in.
Yeah.
I think that's a difference. So it's being chosen for a one-off, which is really what the Olympics are. It's a once every 4 years. It's an amazing one-off, but that's really what it is. To me, Stanley Cup is, and again, the players, you might ask 10 players, you might get, 5 say one, 5 say the other. As of the guys who, I think you have to ask the guys who would have legitimate Olympic hopefuls. You can't ask a guy who's, a fourth line / American League guy because he's obviously going to say Stanley Cup because he probably won't have the opportunity to ever play in the Olympics. But I just think, your club is the guys that you live with for 10 months out of the year, maybe longer.
That makes sense. I think there's certainly a lot to be said for it. The longevity of the season and the battle and the war that it feels like you go through over the course of most of the calendar year. I think you're probably spot on there. But maybe that's a fun little conversation to have at some point. Get a couple of those guys on a show, or as you do your stuff over on NHL.com. It's a worthwhile conversation to have. Now, I do want to get to the Flyers that played over at the Olympics, and I'll go in kind of like reverse order of importance, I think. So Dan Vladar does end up playing, but he doesn't really get leaned on by Czechia in this tournament. I honestly was like a little bit surprised by it. I wonder if the injury that happened a couple weeks or a week and a half or whatever before the Olympics had something to do with it. Maybe not. Were you surprised that he wasn't really relied on in the same way? I thought he was playing the best going into the tournament for his country.
I agree with you. I thought, I know Lucas Dostal was one of the original 6 names, so that maybe gave him a little bit of a leg up in the competition. But I thought Vladar, for the most part, has had a better season on an individual basis than Dostal had. But look, both guys played great. Vladar got 1 game, and for 2 of the 3 periods, he looked great. For 56 minutes, he looked really, really good. The 3 goals he allowed in the 4:53 span against France, probably not a shining moment for him, but all in all, he represented himself very well. He stopped all 7 shots he faced between the first and the third period. One little, 5-minute blip on the radar, but look, excuse me, he just getting the opportunity for him, is probably just the thing that he enjoyed the most.
I thought it was a really cool thing for him. I mean, I feel like of all the people, Vladar kind of made that case in a unique way. A career backup, a guy who, the Flyers took a flyer on, no pun intended, but kind of, I guess. They go and they take a flyer on this guy in the offseason. He absolutely blows their doors off. He claims the number 1 job on the team. He's played incredibly well, at least through the first half of the season. He was astounding in his play in net, top 10, top 7 in a lot of, key metrics among goalies. He played his way onto that team. I mean, he played himself, not even from, being on the periphery. I don't even know if he was really being considered for that team a year ago, and he played his way onto that team. He earned his way on. To me, that goes a long way. Probably for his confidence. And it certainly goes a long way, I think, when you think of the perspective of your team and how people view your team coming back. That guy was an Olympian for the Flyers. It's a cool story, but it's also a little bit of prestige that you get to come back to the locker room. And, the younger guys on the team clearly are going to ask, what was it like? What was it like to go be an Olympian? And Vladar's only one of, technically Abels was an Olympian. He didn't get to play due to injury, but you're one of only 4 guys that made an Olympic team. That's a very unique feather in your cap.
For sure. And it's going to give him the confidence moving forward that, it's validation for all the work he's put in. It's validation for the way he's come back from the massive hip issues that he had prior that kind of cost him most of last season in Calgary. It's validation for the work that he's put in, that he put in during the offseason to make himself better, and for how he's played this season. It tells him, okay, what I'm doing is the right path. I'm on the right way to becoming what I want to be, which is a number 1 NHL goalie on a team with, playoff hopes or playoff possibilities. If not this season, then moving forward, I can be a guy that a team can rely on. He's never played more than 30 games in an NHL season before. He's blown past that and is going to continue, as the games get more important here down the stretch. He's going to get as many games as he's capable of playing. So, he is the number 1 guy for the Flyers, and they're going to ride him, in their minds, hopefully to a playoff berth.
Now, the next guy is one who I think really established himself in a way that, when we went into this Olympic cycle, I think there were questions about whether Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim were going to ultimately make the Canadian team. Konechny did not. Sanheim did. And it felt like leading up to the Olympics, there was the thought Sanheim's going to be the alternate, and he was anything but. Played significant minutes for this team. Looked like he belonged. I would argue that of all the players on the Canadian team, Sanheim maybe played himself into an even higher echelon. It feels like his stature, his status with the Canadian national team in general going forward isn't a lock by any stretch, but he really feels like he matured and took a bigger step than he did even in the 4 nations.
Well, it's interesting. The opinions on Travis Sanheim internally in Philadelphia versus externally in the greater hockey world, I think are vastly different. And maybe some of that is going to get dispelled here moving forward by, as you said, how he played. Again, 4 nations, he was very good. He started as a scratch, got in the lineup because Josh Morrissey got hurt and played really well. Kind of the same thing happened this time around. He was scratched for game 1. Josh Morrissey got injured again, unfortunately. Sanheim came in, had an assist and a +6 rating in 5 games, 13 minutes of ice time, had the assist on the game-tying goal against Finland in the semifinals, had a nice showing for himself on the pair with Shea Theodore. And look, he is going to be the guy in Philadelphia. And, it's a challenge when you go from 23, 24 minutes a game for 55 games to 13 minutes a night. And, you're not playing special teams. You're not getting the ice time or the opportunity. How do you sort of adjust and still make an impact on the game? And he managed to do that. He did it at Four Nations. Now he did it again at the Olympics, and he's got a silver medal to show for it. So, maybe that'll change some of the opinions on who and what Travis Sanheim is when, games get rolling tonight back in Philadelphia.
To me, he's a guy who's this year, we've been saying it all season on Snow the Goalie. We talked to you about it on the Press Row show. I've talked about it on this show. I think that over the last couple of years especially, you've seen a guy that went from looking like his highest ceiling was maybe a second pair defenseman to being a guy who looks like he does belong on a top pair. I wouldn't argue that he's a number one by any stretch, but he's definitely like a top pair guy, and not just a top pair guy on like a middling team or a bubble team. Like he could be like a top pair guy on a really good team. He's played himself into a position where when he got that contract, there were a lot of detractors. I questioned that deal candidly initially, whether or not he was going to be able to justify it. And he right now looks kind of like a steal at the deal he was signed to. And I think we have to, if you're in Philadelphia, you have to give a little tip of the cap and maybe buy a drink the next time you see Torrey Krug for shutting down a potential trade, because for as much as people wanted to theoretically move off of the Sanheim contract before the no movement kicked in, he's looked pretty damn good. So kudos to him. He's really, I think he's turned a lot of people around on his play. Yeah,
for sure. And look, would you wish there would be a bit more offense in his game? Would you wish he maybe took a couple more chances up the ice to kind of create more offense? Because he's certainly capable of doing it.
Yeah.
Sure. But he is what he is at this point. What he is a really smart, solid, capable 200-foot defenseman who can play both sides of special teams, who is never really going to hurt you. And when you're looking at defensemen, that's really, look, everybody wants a Cale Makar. Everybody would love to have a Quinn Hughes on their roster, a guy who can go end to end and whip it around and anchor your power play and score 20 goals and have 80 points. And those guys don't fall out of trees, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What you have with Travis Sanheim is he's very similar to Kimmo Timonen when he was in Philadelphia, where he's not going to blow your doors off with any one thing that he does, but he's just going to show up, be reliable, and be counted on every night over 82 nights.
You never really have to worry about him. It's like the thing that Bundy always says is, for a defenseman, you never want to notice them. I mean, unless they're like one of those very high upside offensive guys that are racking up points and also playing a 200-foot game. Your Quinn Hughes of the world, your Cale Makars of the world. Otherwise, not having to have a conversation after the game, if the guy doesn't stand out, usually take that as a positive sign that he's doing what he's supposed to do as a defenseman. Now, speaking of defensemen, there is one other guy that I think has now played himself into a very interesting position here. Rasmus Ristolainen. Now, I was a little bit mean about Rasmus Ristolainen going into the Olympics, right? We do a Player of the Week over on Snow the Goalie, which, by the way, we're doing tonight, 6 o'clock at Chickies and Pete's in Parks Casino in Ben Salem. For those who want to talk some puck tonight, come out to Parks Casino, 6 o'clock, Chickies and Pete's. We going live there. We do our Player of the Week, and before the Olympics started, Ant wanted to give it to all of the Olympians. And I said, yeah, but there's a different level to this, right? I was like, Sanheim had to bust his ass to make the Canadian team. Vladar played himself onto Czechia. It's like Rasmus Ristolainen is kind of like a default for Finland, right? He's sure. Is it as competitive to make the Finnish team? Probably not. We'll say though, when the chips were down for Finland, he played really well. And now it seems like there are teams that maybe were interested in him in the past. They may be circling back around. And I would assume that there are a few teams that maybe previously were not as in on Rasmus Ristolainen and were kind of questioning whether or not he was healthy. You see him play like he did in the Olympics, it has to help his stock, right? Around the league.
Oh, 100%. But I think it also it shows how important he is when he's healthy. He just hasn't been healthy enough the last couple years where you've been able to see what he's able to do. You know, you go back to the first season of the John Tortorella experience. Who was one of all the players who really gained and grew the most from being part of that? It was Rasmus Ristolainen. He kind of changed the way he played a little bit, where he kind of limited the thought process, limited himself on what he thought he had to do or needed to do to be an effective defenseman. And he said, I'm just going to focus on these 2 or 3 things, and I'm going to go. And credit to Tortorella and credit to Bradshaw also. Let's not forget his role Bradshaw, in overseeing the defenseman. But when Risto was healthy, he was a really effective player. He just hasn't been healthy enough. And I think having his minutes trimmed, you know, there are certain guys who can handle 28, 27 minutes a night. And there are certain guys who get those minutes, but they'll give you a good 18 to 19 minutes a night. Whether they're playing 18 or 19 minutes or whether they're playing 27 minutes, that's the difference. And I think Risto, in his case, was probably giving you a good amount of time, but just was getting more than he was probably capable of handling. Now you look at where he is. He's still an 18, 19-minute a game guy, and he's giving you really good stuff because he's not playing 25, 26 minutes. Saw that at the Olympics. Look, he didn't have to play 23 minutes a night. Played 19. And he was really good. He had 3 assists. He was a +9. He was out there in some really key spots for Finland. I think the Flyers are going to sort of continue using him in that same role, especially if they want to split up the Sanheim-York top pair. Because playing Risto with Sanheim, they've shown good chemistry together in the past. Maybe that's something they go back to, you know, moving forward tonight. We'll have to see. But, you know, I think he showed you what he's capable of when he's healthy. Now it's just a matter of, hopefully, fingers crossed, he can stay healthy.
It's an interesting thing, too, Adam, because, like, listen, there have been teams the last couple of years that have checked in. And I think it was last year. It was about 3 weeks before the deadline is when he got hurt. Or it was 2 weeks before the deadline. It was pretty close to the deadline last year that he got hurt. And prior to that, there was a report that came out that the Flyers were looking for 2 first-round picks for Risto, which seemed insane. But you do look at his body of work. You look at the fact that hockey guys, man, in the front office, they love the size of Risto. We always kind of joke, you know, playoff Risto, and he's never been to the playoffs. But, like, from a perspective of, like, a defenseman that you would want to have in a playoff series, Risto does kind of fit the bill. I'll ask you this. If the Flyers were to retain money, because he only has 1 year left on his deal after this, if they retained money, and I don't think money really matters going into next year, right? Like, they're going to have all this cap space, but no good free agents to spend it on. Do you think they can get a first?
For sure. I mean, look, well, first of all it takes is one GM to say that's our guy and we're going to move hell and high water to get him. Yeah. And then you get your first round pick. But is he worthy of that? I think if you're a team that's looking to add depth on defense, like if you're an elite level team, like a Stanley Cup contender, is he your first line guy? No. But does that make him somehow less vital? Like, Eric Chernak has his name on the Stanley Cup twice with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's not a first-pair guy, but they don't win those cups without him. Yep. Alec Martinez with the LA Kings. He's not a first-pair guy, but they don't win 2 cups without him. Could Risto have that sort of impact on a team in a, you know, down-the-lineup role? 100%. Absolutely. That size, the skill, the penalty kill, what he gives you, a lot of teams would like to have. That toughness, for sure. And yes, he is a big body, but he's a right-handed shot, and he can skate. If he can stay healthy, he can help a lot of teams.
The last thing I wanted to get to with you on this, there's like 2 things, but I think we can touch on them pretty quickly. One, Michkov met with the media yesterday, and there was all kinds of consternation because Michkov went onto Instagram during the break and put out pictures of himself and his girlfriend down in the Dominican Republic. And it did include a video where he's like, you know, throwing the basketball at the hoops, sitting on his keister at the 3-point line. There's another one where he's doing, I think, a lap pull down or something, right? People were like, oh, you say he was going to stay in Voorhees. He was going to stick around here. What's he doing down in the Dominican Republic? He can't even speak English. How's he going to speak Spanish? So people they got up in arms, right? Because people are always looking for reasons to get angry. He spoke to the media yesterday. Slav is back from the Olympics as well. So Slava was there to translate for Michkov. And he, in essence, said that he was working out every day, that he went down to the Dominican, but he was working out there twice a day, and they got back to skate zone or training center or whatever. And like, he seems to be feeling pretty good about things. Was there anything that stood out to you? Like, I guess, did you think that it was a mistake at all? I don't, but do you think it was a mistake at all that he posted on social media, given like where some people were on him and his fitness and the things that have been said around the coach and all that?
So, a couple things to unpack there. I don't care what these guys did during their break. Mm-hmm. If I had the chance to go to the Dominican Republic or shovel 18 inches of snow out of my house, guess which one I'm choosing? Like, these guys, I don't think people understand the work that these guys put in on a daily basis. Practice, workouts, games, the physicality. If these guys want to take a break and go to Dominican Republic and lay on a beach for 7 days, have at it, man. And if you want to put the skates in the locker and not see the gym for 7 days, more power to you. These guys deserve a break. They deserve the time off. So people have created this narrative around Michkov. It's honestly, for those of us who are around it on a daily basis, it's become tiring. It is what it is. I kind of looked up the numbers last night just because I knew it was going to be part of the conversation. It's going to continue to be part of the conversation. Last year, before the Four Nations break, so basically about the same time, he had 36 points in 55 games. Okay? This year, before the Olympics, about the same amount of time, he has 29 points in 55 games. Not that much of a 3 fewer goals. Not that much of a drop-off, right? Sophomore slump happens to everybody, most guys. I say everybody. Happens to most guys year 1 to year 2. It's a learning process. Players know what they're capable of doing. Now they have to figure out how teams are trying to stop them. Look what he did last year after the Four Nations. 27 points in 25 games. Is he capable of doing the same thing? 1,000%. I've been saying it, all season. Like, just did he come to camp in less than ideal shape? Probably. He's admitted it countless times, right?
Including yesterday. He said he essentially took 4 months. He said he took like 4 months away.
Right. So it wasn't a secret. What he said yesterday was not new news. So he understands it's a problem. Listen, he's still 20 years old. He's still living in a new country, in a new culture. And his English is, if you listen to Todd Reardon, is better than we've been led to believe. He's just not comfortable speaking in front of the media. Listen, I couldn't go over to Russia and do interviews in Russian, right?
Yeah.
So I give the kid a lot of grace for doing what he's doing. I think he's going to be fine. Long term, when we're talking 10, 15 years from now, this season's going to be a blip on the radar of what I think is going to be an excellent NHL player. That's what I think Matthew Michkov's going to be. He's going to be an excellent NHL player.
I tend to agree with you. I want to throw really quick over to what he said yesterday. And this was just, there was a question kind of around Tocchet, that relationship, and then around his position this year, because that's been some fodder for people that he's been playing on the left instead of the right. So he said about Tocchet and how he's being played, quote, "I'll play as much time as I'm being given, and I have to do my job. That's the only thing I care about. The way he decides to play me is the way I play. I'm a player, and I have to concentrate 100% on what I'm doing at the moment." But then on the left wing versus right wing thing, and this is the thing where if you've wanted to be up in arms, right, you can make the argument that last year he was significantly more dangerous on the right side of the ice, and that did kind of feel like where he had a lot more gravity, where the opposition had to really pay significant attention to him. It felt like he was a more dangerous player. He said, on adjusting playing to left wing more than right wing, "I don't know. I've always played on the right. I was always happy. Now I'm playing on the left. It's a new role. If the coach sees me there, I have to adapt as quick as I can. For me, it's on the right. I can create a lot more moments. Now I have to switch everything on the left and do the same thing." So I don't know, Adam. Like, it's an adjustment. Now, whether or not it was a smart call by Tocchet to play him on the left side instead of the right, I'd argue he is a more dangerous player on the right. But that's just me. Maybe you get to a point where he finds some new level of comfort on the left. And maybe it's just part of this learning experience in year 2. Does that, like, should people feel better, I guess, is my question, off of that quote, that he's openly admitting, all right, I'm used to playing on this other side, but I have to learn. And he does take accountability, responsibility. Like, I need to learn how to play this role if this is where my coach wants me to play.
100%. Now, I will say this, and this is kind of the way, one of the bigger differences between European hockey and the way North American hockey is. The kids are developed and raised. A lot of European forwards are developed playing their off wing. So that's why Michkov is so comfortable playing on the right side. I had this conversation with Jake Voracek years ago when he was playing for the Flyers, and he is a left-handed shot who played the majority of his career on the right side, had some excellent seasons. Mm-hmm. He got moved to the left side. There was a little bit of a scoring dip. They wanted to freshen up. They put him on the left side. He was never comfortable. He was productive, but he never felt comfortable. And at a certain point, it becomes not just a can you play, it's can I be comfortable in my own head where I can play without thinking? Because that's the key, right? You got to be able to play thought-free. You can't worry about what's going on. You can't think your way through the game. It's too fast. It's too difficult. You got to just react and go. And I think that's where Michkov is. He's got to think and then go because he's not used to playing there. Now, Voracek did it 12, 13 years into the league. It's a little bit different when you're in your second year, not halfway through your second year, and now you got to learn a whole new position and and the way the puck comes off the boards and the way teams are defending you and all these different things. To me, if you want to shift a guy like that, I think you're better served doing it later in his career when he's established himself. For me, if I believe the team is going to go as far as Michkov, who's their most gifted, most skilled player, can take them. So I would think putting him in the most advantageous place to succeed is the best thing for the player and the team. Now, Rick Tocchet obviously knows way more about hockey than I do, so he's got his reasoning for putting him there. And kudos to Michkov for trying to do everything he can to be productive in that spot. And it's not like he's been terrible. But I think you can see him thinking through situations versus rather than just reacting and playing and going. So will it be a fit eventually? Probably. He's just too good a player to fail. But
what would you think about them saying, all right, like when we're at even strength, you're a left wing, but you get power play opportunities, and we want you to be more on that right side where you are more dynamic with the man advantage. Like, could that be the bridge to him learning how to play left wing at the NHL level while also still maximizing the player that he can be on that right wing with the man advantage?
I think there's so much movement on the power play to begin with. I don't know. Like, it's where you start on the setup isn't really where you finish a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're Alex Ovechkin and you're going to get in that left circle and just stay
and
there
just kind of camp out
2 straight minutes. Guys move around all the time. They go high, they go low, they go into the bumper, they get near the net. I would like to see Michkov down near the net more on the power play because I think his hands are so good that, you go back and you look at the goal that Sebastian Aho scored for Finland in I think it was the bronze medal game, where he's just hanging at the net. He gets lost in traffic and just a puck just bounces to him and he scores into an open net. I think Michkov could be that sort of player where he just kind of hangs around. You lose track of him and bang, a puck's on his stick. It's in the back of the net. So I would like to see him more at the net than hanging on the flanks. But again, wherever he's comfortable is where he needs to be to maximize every little bit of skill that he has.
Agreed. All right. Now, last thing, we'll do this on the kind of quick because, I've held you for long enough, whether it's against your will or not, I don't know. But obviously, you said Michkov is the guy that right now has the most elite upside, most skilled. They also have a guy who's playing in college right now who everybody's very high on. The organization's high on. The fans are incredibly high on, and it seems like with good reason. Porter Martone having a hell of a season for Michigan State. And I also kind of want to lump in Gavin McKenna, who had maybe not a rough start, but certainly wasn't blowing the doors off of teams the way that it seemed like people expected him to, fair or unfair, going into the season as being pretty much the consensus number 1 pick going into next year's draft. Real quick, where do you think those guys are right now, and how likely do you think it is that they could be on an NHL roster next year?
So I think both guys will be in the NHL next season. without a doubt. Martone, there is potential for him to be there this year, but there's a lot that goes into that because Michigan State's #1 team in the country right now. The Frozen Four, I believe, ends about the same time the Flyers regular season would end. There might be a little bit of a crossover there. So do you burn that first year, that entry-level contract, to give him 1 game, 2 games, or is it better to let him relax after a long and a very challenging season for these guys who have made the jump from major junior to the NCAA, because it is an entirely different atmosphere for them. And you look at where Martone is now, 14 points during a 7-game point streak, had his first hat trick against Notre Dame last week, 41 points in 28 games on the season. He's tied for 8th among all NCAA players, 3rd among freshmen. He's had an outstanding season, but there's been an adjustment period for him going from playing against 16 and 17-year-olds to playing against 20, 21, 22-year-olds. He's not the biggest bull in the woods anymore. Mm-hmm. There's guys who are similar size, similar strength to him, and there was some time for him to figure his way around it. It looks like coming back from World Juniors, he has figured it out, and he's got an outstanding team and an outstanding coach around him. And you could say the same thing about Gavin McKenna. Look, he had 8 points in a game the other night. Martone had his hat trick the same night. McKenna had a goal and 7 assists, 5 of them primary assists.
Crazy.
Big Ten first star of the week. Look, since, and you mentioned it, before the World Juniors, 18 points in 16 games. Not bad, not great, not generational, just really, really good for a 17-year-old most of that time. He didn't turn 18 until December 20th. Since the World Juniors, 25 points in 12 games. 9 goals and 16 assists. That's pretty good. Again, coming off of World Juniors where he was the 2nd leading scorer of the tournament. Yep. He adjusted just like the way a lot of hockey people realized he would. Fans were like, oh, he's not going to live up to the hype, all that. To me, when I do my next mock draft, and probably any other mock draft I do between now and June, he's going to be #1. Like, I don't – there are some really, really talented players in this year's draft, and that's a discussion for down the road, but I don't see a better one than Gavin McKenna.
I think it's a good place to end it.
Absolutely.
Great insight as always. Adam Kimelman, let the people know where they can find you. Obviously, NHL.com. But what do you have anything cooking today?
Not today, but you can find me on Twitter at NHLAdamK, and I'm also on Blue Sky at sort of the same thing. Their handles are a little bit different.
Their handles are very confusing. I don't get it.
They're still working on it. It's still new. I have actually. I'll plug it now. The Flyers have a national game against the Bruins coming up on Saturday. I talked to a lot of people who know Trevor Zegras best. Had an outstanding season. For those who haven't, we've gotten, you and I have gotten around to be around Trevor Zegras. He is a unique personality.
For sure.
I took the time to talk to some people who know him best. I got some pretty interesting stories. So leave that as a little cliffhanger. That story is going to publish either Friday or Saturday ahead of the game against the Bruins on the weekend. But we delve into a lot of interesting stories. So it was fun one to research, and there are no limit of people who will say how fun Trevor Zegras is to be around.
That's awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye out for it. A big thank you to Adam Kimelman. Stick taps, and as always, keep the stick taps above the table. Adam, I'm sure we'll see you very soon down at the Xfinity Mobile Arena over on the Press Row Show. Thanks for hopping on today.
Absolutely. Anytime, Russ.
All right. There's Adam Kimelman, ladies and gentlemen. Always a treat to have on the show. I always feel like I learn something from Adam every time he's on. I hope you do too. Now, I'll tell you some other stuff that we need to learn. We need to learn the latest on your team, your town, your Philadelphia Eagles. We got to talk about Nick Sirianni and his A.J. Brown comments. And this is the beauty of kind of doing the show when we're doing it. He just came out with some new comments in like the last hour or so. So we'll play those for you as well. And as if that weren't enough, we got to talk about something that came out of Phillies camp. And, well, no, we'll do those two. First, I want to take you to something that kind of broke the internet yesterday. And there was a story that came out from Tim McMahon over on ESPN.com. And Adam Schefter is the one who put the quote out into the universe and drove everybody insane, like made a mountain out of a molehill. Schefter puts out a quote from the story that made it sound like the Eagles are about to go through a very ugly divorce with A.J. Brown, which, listen, regardless of where you land on how his season went last year and how he conducted himself last year, all that stuff, this team is better. The Philadelphia Eagles are a better team with A.J. Brown on it than without him. Devontae Smith is an incredible receiver, would be a number one on probably 20 plus other teams. But there is something to be said for having A.J. Brown on the other side that helps to free up Devontae Smith. This team is better with A.J. Brown. There's also the dead cap issue if they were to trade A.J. Brown. Here's the quote from yesterday. This is the one that came out from ESPN.com. When Nick Sirianni was asked on whether or not A.J. Brown would be on the team in 2026, quote, "Will A.J. be here next season? I think we're still in a spot where I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow." Now, maybe that's tongue-in-cheek, right? I didn't see that there was a video attached to the story. And so maybe it was tongue-in-cheek because he's clearly going to be the head coach next year. So maybe that was the joke. Maybe Sirianni was trying to be a little bit cheeky. I don't know. But man, in the midst of the things that are going on around your team and were going on around this player with your team and the thought that this player was kind of a malcontent because of you and your buddy offensive coordinator who couldn't scheme their way out of a wet paper bag, maybe if you're trying to be funny, that ain't the guy to be funny about. So yesterday, it kind of lit Eagles Twitter on fire. Now, I will give credit in that apparently this came out about 2 hours ago, not 1 hour ago. This came out 2 hours ago. Mike Garafolo sat down with Nick Sirianni, and this certainly sounds considerably better to me if you're looking for a little bit of positivity on the A.J. Brown coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go out to Garafolo and to Nick Sirianni on A.J. Brown's future with the team.
Here's what I know, here's what I've reported, is that he recently has been in a great headspace. And there's been great communication.
This is Garafolo saying that A.J. Brown's been in a great headspace.
With the team and him. Do you agree to that? I mean, do you believe that all this communication so far has been good?
Yeah, my expectation is that he wants to be here, and we want him here, and
You hear that? Hold on. Let's re-rack that, Nick, because again, what the hell was the comment yesterday? All right, Sirianni, go ahead.
He wants to be here, and we want him here, and man, again, like I said, Howie said this in an interview not too long ago. It's hard to get good players. We want as many good players as we possibly can have on the team, especially a guy who's a teammate and a person like AJ.
Okay, I have a question. Does anybody think anymore? Does Nick Sirianni think anymore? Does anybody can somebody please, maybe it has to be Big Dom. Can somebody please just put Nick Sirianni into a room and just have a real quick come to Jesus moment and just say, yo, dude, maybe of all the people that you comment on, maybe don't do that with A.J. Brown. Of all the people. We can have the constant question of, whether or not the quarterback trusts the head coach trusts the quarterback, all that lovely stuff. Will they take a quarterback in the second or third round this year to prepare to jettison Jalen Hurts? All that lovely stuff. You can do that and live in that little bubble if you want. But of all the people, to be like, well, I don't know, is he going to be back? Howie's kind of pointing out, we don't know who's going to be back, and I think I'm going to be the coach. Don't say stuff like that. What he said with Garafolo is perfectly fine. Yes. A.J. Brown, we think A.J. wants to be back. We want him back. Cool. If that's your only comment, guess what? All of the crap around the team, it dissipates. All of the fear that the fans have about moving on from A.J. Brown, it's gone. If the GM, if the owner, the head coach say, we're not getting rid of A.J. Brown. He is critical to our team. We had some disagreements last year. A.J. Brown is going to be a key focal point of our offense. We are going to work with him and our skill players and our quarterback and our new offensive coordinator and our passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And everything. We're going to work with all of them. And we are going to make sure that what happened last year does not happen again. Just say that. Everybody get on the same page. The thing that I always come back to is unforced errors by teams. And those unforced errors becoming some gigantic scandal or gigantic controversy from something that didn't need to be a controversy to start. This A.J. Brown thing has been floating out since like week 3, and then we saw, at the end of the season, there was the report that he had requested a trade multiple times. The Eagles were like, absolutely not. We don't know if that's true, right? Like, we don't know. A lot of these reports, you don't know how much is true. You don't know where the information comes from. It's part of journalism, right? It's part of reporting. I get it. I've reported some stuff on the hockey side before. I know who I talk to. I can tell you definitively that the people that I've talked to when I report something or I put it out there, they are very good sources. They are people who tend to have a very good idea of what is being negotiated or talked about. You don't have to believe me, though. Sometimes when a report is put out there, you kind of go, is it true? When you have the opportunity as the head coach to go out there and squash any kind of questions around one of your most important players, you need to squash it. And, I brought up this idea of you never know where the information is coming from and how good the information is. And that actually gets us to our last thing today, which is on the Phillies, because I don't think this ultimately matters. I'm going to be really, really clear. I am not looking to chastise the person who put the initial report out. But the point of this show is to talk about Philadelphia sports, national sports, and dissect the media who cover them. And so we have to be fair. There was a big thing that came out last week about the Phillies potentially being interested in a reunion with Rhys Hoskins. And this came from Devin Caney, who works over at WIP. And this was the original report. And so I'll take the comments in here. This was the original report. Now, again, I report, you decide. This was her tweet last week. Sources tell me Bryce Harper has been advocating for more right-handed power and someone who could give the Phillies more emotional edge and swagger. I'm told Harper suggested Dave Dombrowski look into a reunion with Rhys Hoskins, who remains a free agent. This is before he was signed. I'm told Hoskins is game to come back and finish the job with the Phillies. Dombrowski kicked the tires on a potential reunion before ultimately deciding Hoskins is not a fit, according to sources. So, this sounds like two different sources. This sounds like more than just one. This sounds like there's a source who came maybe from the locker room, could have been somebody from the front office, tangentially affiliated with the front office, who would be aware that Harper maybe talked to Dombrowski about Harper suggesting to Dombrowski looking to Rhys Hoskins. Then, it seemingly is we have another source who's closer to Hoskins who confirmed that Hoskins would be interested in coming back to the Phillies. And then this Dombrowski kicked the tires on a potential reunion before ultimately deciding he was not a fit. That could have been source one. That's my guess. If I had to guess, I'm thinking there's probably two sources here. It could have been one. I want to give the benefit of the doubt that you're at least going to two sources when you're putting a report out. So I'm thinking that the first blurb and the last one are the same person, maybe somebody who's around the front office or is aware of their thought process. And the second one is somebody who's closer to Hoskins. Maybe, right? So that gets put out. Okay. Well, Rhys Hoskins doesn't get brought back because you could see the tweet there, which we're going to come back to in a second. Bryce Harper was asked about it over on WIP's morning show. And I want you to hear the way that he described whether or not they actually were trying to go after Rhys Hoskins this offseason, and whether or not he advocated for this to happen. Actually, hold on. I didn't have the audio set there. Here we go. Here's good old Bryce Harper on whether or not he advocated for bringing back Rhys Hoskins to the Phillies this offseason.
I thought, definitely we were going to do this offseason is go out and get a right-handed bat, and we were able to go get Garcia. Obviously, I don't know where he's going to hit or who's going to hit in that 4 spot or 3 spot or 2 spot. I mean, I don't even know, lineup-wise what we're going to do yet. I don't know what Tom Purr, has in mind. We haven't really talked about it yet.
So, to Devin Caney's credit, he did confirm the first part of the report. He thought they were going to go out and get more right-handed power, that they were going to go out and get a right-handed bat. Now, clearly, because he's talking about where he is in the lineup, he thought that they were going to go out and get a guaranteed, well-defined impact bat from the right side of the plate. That's kind of where they came up short. Garcia is an okay player, but he's really a Castellanos replacement, better in the field, probably going to give you about the same thing, maybe a little bit more power at the plate.
So I'm probably, we'll probably have that conversation with Trey and me and Schwarbs and all of us kind of sitting down and talking about it. So, we'll see.
Was that something the guys in the locker room were like, hey, Rhys is out there? I mean, like, we could use a right-handed power hitter. Rhys is available.
John Ritchie
Was that
trying to
discussed at any point? Is that?
Yeah, we didn't really talk about Rhys. We talked about Rhys maybe last year at deadline at a certain point, but we never talked about Rhys this offseason or team-wise. We didn't. I mean, maybe internally they did, but for us, we never talked about it in camp or anything like that. Obviously, you'd always love to have Rhys back at any fashion. It kind of just doesn't fit for us as a team right now. I don't know what, with the DH spot, first base, outfield, that kind of stuff. So it just didn't really make sense.
Now, here's the tricky part. On one hand, he's saying we as a team, as a clubhouse, didn't talk about it. Maybe they talked about it internally. Well, Bryce has been Mr. We're keeping things in-house, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He didn't say that he didn't have a side conversation with Dombrowski. So maybe that part is true. Like, maybe that still happened. But it does kind of sound like he poo-pooed the idea that he and or other people on the team were trying to get Hoskins back. Now, that brings us back to the original report and the person who originally reported that Harper was interested in a reunion with Rhys Hoskins. This is where, I don't know, I report, you decide. Devin Caney then quote tweets her report from last week. Everyone missing the point of the story. It's not about Rhys Hoskins. Read the first line. Now read it again. Thanks. All right, so first sentence. Sources tell me Bryce Harper has been advocating for more right-handed power and someone who could give the Phillies more emotional edge, swagger. True. He confirmed that. I mean, he confirmed that they thought they were going to bring in somebody. However, I'm told Harper suggested Dave Dombrowski would look into a reunion with Rhys Hoskins. First, Rhys Hoskins. I'm told Hoskins is game to come back. That's Hoskins number 2. Dombrowski kicked the tires on a potential reunion before ultimately deciding Hoskins is not there. That's 3 mentions of Rhys Hoskins. You can't do that and then do this kind of backtrack on the report. Here's what you should do. Okay? Like, this is simple. I stand by my report. Bryce Harper can say whatever he wants publicly. I stand by my report. Cool. Done and dusted. That's it. Because if it was actual sourced information, and if you verified it with multiple people, that's what you do. You say, you know what? I respect the fact that Bryce Harper went and spoke on the station on another show, but I stand by my report. That's it. Unless you don't believe in the veracity of your own reporting, in which case, then maybe you quote tweet yourself and say it wasn't about Hoskins at all. Read the first sentence. That's just me. The way that I go about, if I do put something on, you have to note, I don't usually like to report things. It's really not my thing. I'm not down around these teams every day. I may go down and host a show at every Flyers home game up in the balcony, right? Like I will on Saturday. Saturday's first game back with the Flyers in town at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Come on up, go through the doors, section 121, go all the way up to the balcony and tell them you're going to come see the show next to the organ. I may be there, but like I'm not down in the locker room anymore, right? Like I used to. Years ago I used to. But like I'm not down talking to these guys. I'm not going down to Flyers Training Center every week or every day or even every month to go down and talk to these guys. It's not part of what I do. It's not my job. So you're not going to see me report a lot. Now, sometimes if I am interested in a story, I will try to get a little bit of information. And if I feel like it is credible and I check with a few people, then I'll report it. But that's also not my job. I talk into a microphone for fun. It's not my livelihood. And reporting is not something that I put on my resume. And it's not something that I call myself as a capital J journalist. If you're going to report something, you have to be willing to stand by it. Or you say, you know what? I went back to my source. Source admitted that they may have been incorrect with what they initially said. I don't know. I'm just me. This is how I view things. You can let me know if you agree or disagree. It's time to roll out, though. I do appreciate everybody being here. Big thank you to Adam Kimelman, who was here for a large chunk of the show, talking Olympic hockey, talking Flyers. Gavin, McKenna, Porter Martone. We'll be back on Friday. On Friday, we will delve more into the teams of the city. And, well, I think we might have to go back to Sixers land a little bit on Friday because they had a hell of a game. They had a hell of a game last night, and Joel Embiid returned to the lineup, and Embiid looked pretty damn good again. It was his first game back since he suffered an injury that cost him some time with the knee management before the All-Star break, and then certainly the shin during the All-Star break. He dropped 27 points last night. Maxey had 32, and Edgecombe had 23. So we'll delve into that game, and maybe we'll take a look at what kind of chance the Sixers do have going forward. But it feels like every time I say something positive about the Sixers, they go out and shit the bed the next game. So I'm going to be really careful, okay? We're going to be careful. Not going to hype everybody up about the Sixers right now. But I'll be back on Friday. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. I didn't note this at the top of the show, but I do want to thank you because thanks to all of you, we've gone over 2,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. So do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. If you like the podcast feed, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. And now, there you go, Ford. I shared a comment on the screen. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.